So, the conservative war against divorce is something I've been covering on this channel for the last couple months because I found it like a very interesting thing. Mainly because it was like, when we think about like conservative policies and what they want, it feels like the least of their concerns. Like, you're really going to dig up this old argument about divorce? But it all came to a head. This is 7 months ago. I'm seeing this video when Stephen Crowder got divorced by his wife and he started lamenting, "Oh, I live in a state where there's no fault divorce," meaning you can just get divorced if one person wants to. So, seems pretty fair. If you don't want to stay in this legal relationship with someone anymore, you get a divorce. This set off a chain reaction of lots of conservatives coming out saying, yes, divorce is bad and women should be trapped in divorce because we are focusing on specifically many Christian couples and women divorcing their husbands, and what they see it as is a way to control women. Now, recently, as we're going to talk about a bit later, it appears like Destiny, the liberal live streamer, he's also getting a divorce. But why these people kind of like gloating about it, making fun of him, is because he was in an open marriage with his wife. And, as people on the left, I don't think anyone is judging anyone for relationships that aren't the norm, like open marriages or poly relationships and stuff like that. At least I don't. So none of us are I haven't seen anyone making fun of Destiny for having an open marriage, but conservatives have taken this chance to kind of both dunk on him, but also criticize open marriage as a whole because it's part of their overall war for marriage and against divorce, because these people don't want divorce to even be legal, which is just crazy. And we're going to hear some of the justifications for this. So, like I said, I made this video like 7 months ago. We're going to look at these people again. So here's Michael Knowles. I think he's talking about Tom Brady getting a divorce. And this is just what he thinks of just anyone getting divorced. And then we'll go on to Matt Walsh before listening to the Destiny thing.
Citizens, not friends of Tom Brady. I don't know Tom Brady. Not as, people who are in the family, but our responsibility as citizens to say they shouldn't do this. They shouldn't do this. I know it's a fallen world and people have tough marriages and people go through rough patches. I have never seen a family improved by divorce. Sometimes, in very rare cases, there is not only a right, but an obligation to have some kind of separation. Let's say that, I don't know, the husband is a knockdown, violent, abusive drunk, and he's thrown his wife against the walls. And sometimes, for just the protection of one's own life and the life of one's own kids, there is some separation that might be required. Say until the husband goes to rehab or something like that, figures out his life. I'm not denying that, but as a rule, I have never ever seen a family improved by divorce. Figure it out. But it's not reparable at this point. It's absolutely, the marriage is just beyond repair. No, it isn't. How do you avoid divorce? How do you keep a marriage together? And the best advice I heard was very simple. They said, the best way to keep your marriage together and have a long marriage is just don't get divorced. You're not going to feel happy at every single moment of your life. There are more important things than your individual pleasure at any given moment. Just work it out.
Plenty of things to talk about there, but the thing he ended with is about your individual pleasure, and it's something they'll talk about, the open marriage stuff. They're like, you failed marriage because you've had this open marriage, which is all about your individual pleasure at any given time. But obviously, what you're hearing there is the most toxic, horrible justification for staying married. Because they're so religious, they see it as this thing, and also like an institution just for like a better world as they see it. This very conventional marriage. And once you're married forever under the eyes of God. All this bullshit, right? Even though marriage has historically just been something to cement like family or political ties, and a religious thing, more than anything to do with like love or compatibility. That's only like a more modern thing. When you hear people like this say this advice for people going through hard times in a marriage, that you should just work through it no matter what, then you hear that they want to actually, outlaw no-fault divorce, which is divorce as pretty much most people understand it. Just if, you're not happy, divorce your partner. And then you hear also they're waging this war against open marriages as well, which I admit isn't the norm, but then it's none of your business. Don't conservatives love individual liberty? And it's just really, really concerning. It just feels like, especially with everything else they've said, they want to trap women in terrible relationships and force them to be with conservative men to essentially be baby machines. That's the vibe I get from all of this stuff, especially as we talked about, I think, last week, where Matt Walsh was talking all about the dinks, dual income, no kids, saying you're failing your ancestors and bloodline. So if you think this all sounds fascist, as so much conservatism does these days, you'd be very right. So before we listen to Matt Walsh talk about Destiny's open marriage and it ending, let's listen to what he has to say about getting rid of no-fault divorce.
Way alone and isolated is to give up on your duty, your legacy, your ancestors, your bloodline, your civilization, your happiness. Most divorces are initiated by women, and also most women have careers. There's no reason why a woman with a job who decides to leave her husband and break the marriage vows should then be rewarded with a monthly stipend from the man that she wants nothing to do with. But I think the reform to no-fault divorce is far simpler. It should be reformed by simply ceasing to exist. Marriage is much more than a contract. It's a covenant. But to the extent that it is also a contract, it's hard to think of any other situation in which a contract can be broken for no reason by either party without the consent of the other and entirely without cause. When you make divorce easy, and for at least one party concerned profitable, you get more of it. In fact, shockingly, when you make divorce easier and more profitable for one sex at the expense of the other, you get a greater number of the members of that sex initiating divorces. If you incentivize disloyal, selfish behavior, you get more of it. However, if you make divorce difficult and potentially costly for everybody involved, not for one spouse, but both, then you've given couples an incentive to find another solution for their supposedly irreconcilable differences.
What I think part of informs a lot of this is conservative men are really scared of changing their behavior, and they're realizing that lots more women these days, and women tend to, I think I saw a poll recently, Gen Z women are trending left-wing far more than men. And men, I think, was it young men or young white men are trending more conservative. And like, how do you reconcile that? It's, try and trap them in a marriage and make it really hard for them to leave. That's what it feels like, honestly, because they're realizing now, and he's bemoaning feminism here as well, because women have more options. Women don't have to settle. And thanks to women's rights movements, they can just, even if they are getting married to a terrible bloke, they can leave when they want. And people like Matt Walsh want to end that. Is at its core, it's like this protection of this very patriarchal conservative worldview, in that marriage is a good thing, it's a covenant, it's a union, but obviously it's something, in his opinion, that should be dominated by a man, and that comes along with who should have the responsibilities. These guys have also all bragged about not even knowing how to clean, not knowing how to do laundry, never doing laundry, never doing the washing up. They've all bragged about this, right? So do you honestly think these people care about the sanctity of marriage because they care about a loving relationship? Or is it all about controlling women? Now, I thought I'd play you some of that clip because I want to frame the Destiny stuff. So there's two clips I want to show you because he talks about Jada Pinkett Smith as well. And one thing you always have to do with conservatives is think about who they're focusing on. So he's focusing on two open marriages, which one is getting a divorce, one is staying together, but everyone thinks it's weird. And he's focusing on the woman, mainly. The woman ruining the open marriage. And obviously, they're against the promiscuity and everything like that, but I wanted to go through some of this.
Streamer and YouTuber Destiny, who previously bragged about the pair's open marriage, is reportedly leaving him for a man she met in Sweden, according to online reports. Screenshots from what appears to be messages from Destiny in a Discord channel show him complaining about his wife, Swedish internet personality Melina Goransson, and her alleged new lover. In the leaked Discord chat, Destiny appeared to lament his wife's choice to leave him for a toxic, abusive guy. Quote, "The last 2 months and 2 weeks have been a massive mind F for me, watching her become obsessed with a toxic, abusive guy. When I visited Sweden last, he gave Mel an ultimatum to divorce me." And in the past, Destiny had been very open about his open relationship, appearing on different podcasts to talk about it. So here he is with Lex Friedman a year or two ago, along with his wife, explaining their open arrangement. Watch.
One interesting aspect of your relationship is you're in an open relationship. Mm-hmm. What's that like? From a game theoretic simulation perspective, what went into that calculation? And like, how does that...
Like how that started? Or
yeah, how did that start? Sure.
The only relationships I've ever done has been open relationships since I was like in high school. because I didn't really understand like why wouldn't you be able to like do other things with other people, but then just like have your main partner basically.
So what is an open relationship, generally speaking? That means you have one main
Like a
partner?
non-monogamous relationship. Like you're somehow allowed like in different ways. You can see other people sexually.
Sexually, but like there's one main.
Yeah, or it doesn't
station.
have to be there for some people, but like I
Okay.
think it's probably easier, and we probably don't really have time or the energy for like more than like one person to like really like.
Well, I said that Destiny explains the arrangement, but actually, as you heard, his wife does most of the talking. And that's interesting because though I don't know who first decided to open the marriage in his case, I do know that most of the time, one participant will seem to be much more into the idea than the other. That's because an open relationship is rarely a mutual decision, no matter what they might claim. Both spouses are not usually going to simultaneously come up with the idea that they should have sex with other people and then in unison blurt it out.
So I'm going to stop there because we've heard him talk about it a tiny bit. So obviously, for conservatives, and for him especially, because he's going to talk about Jada Pinkett Smith as well, he basically views it as Destiny being a cuck. And Destiny's just going along with it because his wife wanted it and he didn't want the wife to leave or get a divorce with him and stuff like that. So he became this cuck, basically. And like I said, I don't know anything really about Destiny's relationship, but obviously what they're using it as is to try and just attack any differences with marriages. And it's like obviously a very conservative thing because with leftist people, you know, I know people who have like poly relationships. And honestly, for the side that claim to care about personal freedom, it's funny how they can't see it in any other way. And it's funny they're so against it. Like, I don't give a shit, personally, what kind of relationship you're in. Obviously, I can recognize the problems with open marriages, open relationships. And obviously, I wouldn't tell anyone, go and do that. Like, personally, I don't want to do that. But at the same time, if you want one, and everyone's okay with that, and you enter into this with this understanding that it's okay, or even if later you want to open it up, and that works for you, like, who the am I to judge? And anyway, let's go on a bit further.
I think broadly speaking, you've got like polyamorous relationships and you've got like open relationships where polyamorous is like, oh, I've got like 3 different girlfriends and we all hang out or sometimes even live together or 3 boyfriends, whatever. And then you've got like open relationships, which is like, oh, you know, like you can basically hook up with other people and then you've got like your main relationship and that's it. I think ours is probably somewhere in the middle, of that, to where like we've got like long-term friends, some of them we hook up with, and that's kind of how we, it's a delicate dance that explodes every 6 months on itself.
So it does explode. You guys fight over it?
We fight over some things, things happen,
I think it's mostly because a lot of people can't handle it, and they agree to something, and then they realize that we're way too cool, and then they get really obsessed, and they think that they can like get in there, and then it gets really dramatic.
Do you guys experience jealousy?
Usually, like whenever I feel like he's not spending the amount of time that I'm asking for, and he spends it on his video games or his stream, or like he sees someone else like more than he sees me or something like that, that would like not be good because then it affects like our relationship.
Well, it's obviously something that didn't work because they're breaking up, aren't they? But at the same time, on the surface, in theory, how they described it, like, why would anyone have any problem with that? I don't really understand, right? Like, yeah, if you want to have a marriage because you two are the most, it's like your life partner, isn't it? And I guess with an open marriage, there's an understanding that the constant is going to be you and them, you and your husband or wife or whatever. And as time goes on, you're going to have like different relationships, sexual, whatever, with other people. Again, people understand this. It's fine. I don't understand why anyone would have a problem with it, but we all understand what conservatives really think of it. So let's listen to him describe it, and I'm going to forward it, I think, to the end, which is what I want to talk about a bit more.
Obviously, the whole idea of an open marriage is absurd. Not just absurd, it's a contradiction in terms. Marriage cannot be open like a square cannot be circular. I probably also need to explain that infidelity doesn't become something other than infidelity just because it's mutual and consensual, supposedly, and happening out in the open. Unfaithfulness is unfaithfulness. Cheating is cheating. You haven't found some ingenious way of gaming the system simply by announcing that you're going to cheat, rather than doing it in secret as adulterers have traditionally done. Infidelity is a cancer in your marriage that will eventually kill it. The fact that you have embraced the cancer and welcomed it doesn't make your situation any less terminal. There's a reason why you never hear about couples celebrating their 50th anniversary of an open marriage, because open marriages burn quickly.
Again, how does this work? How is it cheating if you're both okay with it? Like, in theory, we're not talking about Destiny specifically. We're talking about in theory. In theory, both people could get married And also, it's either like compatibility with sex drives. And if you go into that with the understanding, how is it cheating? How is it cheating if you're just having an open relationship and with the understanding of what, the limits are, understanding what's okay and what's not okay? Like, yeah, it's hard work. It sounds like exhausting work, in my opinion. But if people can make that work and can honestly tell you it's fine, who am I to judge? And who am I to say to them, no, actually, what you described to me is cheating? So obviously, Jada Pinkett Smith has been a bit open about their own open marriage, her and Will Smith. I mean, my main criticism of this is if I was in the public eye and had a mum and dad who were in the public eye, I probably wouldn't really want my mum to be broadcasting this to the entire world, especially because a lot of the time, it's quite embarrassing personal details, right? And I'd respect them a bit more if they kept it private. But Matt Walsh also very mad about this. And what I love about both of these videos on open marriage is Matt Walsh basically frames it as the men in the open marriage have no agency. Like, the men aren't actually okay with this. They're just cucks. And that's why they stay. That is basically what he's saying. And that's why he's focusing on this. Because what the narrative he's trying to spin here is open marriage, progressive sexuality, that's all something linked to feminism. And if you want to push back against feminism, you have to have a traditional monogamous marriage, and everything outside of that is evil and the creation of promiscuous women. Promiscuous women who just want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to have that relationship with you, if they're straight, the man, and they want to sleep around as well, because that's what feminism's all about to people like Matt Walsh.
It's another interview that Jada Pinkett Smith is doing. And in this interview, she says that she's glad that the slap happened because that's when she decided that she's not going to leave Will Smith, because she sees the slap as a positive, as holy. It destroyed her husband's life and career. Like, his career is over because it probably never really going to, at least it's never going to get back to what it was. It made him into a disgrace, a punchline. Like, that is the thing that people will remember Will Smith for forever. That is his, he enjoys watching this man debase himself. As we know, and why is that? Because she obviously enjoys watching this man debase himself. As we know, she takes a great deal of pleasure in Will Smith's public humiliation. Like, it really is amazing how evil this woman is. She's like a cartoon. She's the kind of person who, if she was a character in a movie, like, it would take you out of the story because she's too evil. You would say, like, it's not even believable.
So I'm just going to skip forward, but I do love, not that I really want to talk about the Will Smith slap in near the end of 2023, but at the same time, I do love how she's evil because she enjoyed him slapping Chris Rock and enjoyed him embarrassing himself by doing that. But she didn't, she didn't tell him to do that. Is he not his own person? Do you really think that Will Smith could have just not done that? And also, Will Smith doing that is super toxic masculinity, which fits right in with Matt Walsh's own worldview, that you've disrespected my wife, therefore I must punch you in the face in front of tens of millions of people, or slap you in the face in front of tens of millions of people, right? So how is she the evil one? He embarrassed himself. He embarrassed himself. She didn't do it. She didn't make him do it. He chose to do that because he has his own hang-ups about his own relationship with his wife. But somehow in this world, in this like open marriage they have, she's the villain. She's evil, according to Matt Walsh. She's evil because apparently he thinks she enjoys Will Smith embarrassing himself by doing something that most men would not do, at the very least out of fear of like ending their career and everything that went with him doing that slap. Again, insane to even blame her for this. Like, again, I don't care what anyone thinks about her. The way people obviously covered this, it just shows who is like a massive misogynist. But let's keep going. There's one more thing he says I want to pick up on.
But we've all seen this, and it's very awkward to be around it. When you see a man get kind of like cut down and embarrassed by his wife or his girlfriend. And you can tell, Jada Pinkett Smith loves doing it. She loves to just embarrass this man. And it's red flag. If you're with men are always, I get questions from young men all the time. What should you be looking for in a woman? There's a lot to be looking for. But when you talk about red flags, you're dating a woman, if there's like one time, even once, when she does or says anything that is intended to legitimately embarrass you, even in a small way, then get the hell out.
Yeah, like this constant or self-victimization of men, of that they're the victims of all of this. And where's the agency? Like, he's saying at the end, get the hell out, but where's Will Smith's agency? Where's all these men's agency to leave toxic relationships? Like, yeah, of course you can be in a toxic straight relationship, but at the same time, acting like all men are the victims of evil women who will embarrass them forever, because, you know, they're just evil feminists who want their cake and to eat it too with the open marriage, is just like insane framing. Like, but yeah, at the same time, I just find the framing of all of this marriage stuff, it just constantly paints men as harmless victims to scheming women who will want to exploit marriage for whatever it's worth. So in the case of Destiny, it's that I'm going to cuck him because I can do that and I'm an empowered woman. In the case of Jada Pinkett Smith, it's the same. I'm going to cuck him. I'm going to embarrass him because that's what gets me off. And also, like, with their views on no-fault divorce, it's I'm going to get into this marriage, divorce him, and take all his money. And that's why I do it, right? So it's seeing, which is really strange for people who are like straight men, seeing women as this constant threat to you all the time, especially in marriage, so much so you want to end no-fault divorce just to make sure they're not scamming you, is just such insane logic to me. And on that point, let's just talk about...
There's a very prominent...
So Michael Knowles, obviously, who earlier said no one should get divorced ever, is also weighing in on this as well.
God forbid this happens, will it be fun if this open relationship ends up causing things to fall apart down the line if one of you guys finds yourself in an entanglement, so to speak, with with somebody who you might find a deeper connection with than the other person? Like, if that causes the relationship to fall apart, that probably wouldn't be very fun.
No, it would be horrible, and it would be sad.
Do you guys have a high degree of confidence that your marriage will last for decades?
I mean, I married her without a prenup, so I hope so. Okay, or else this motherfucker's going to be...
He married her without a prenup. Good on him, actually. That's great. Not good on him to sleep around with other people and to let his wife sleep around with other people. He explains why he decided to start doing that on the same show.
Best sexual partners that I've had in my life were all the people that I were in the long-term relationships with. So, like, on a one-night stand, like, it's hard to know, like, one night stand's not even that fun sexually, depending on what you're looking for.
I can agree that the longer you're with somebody, the better sex gets. So why is she not enough?
Why is she not enough? It's,
Why
I mean,
not
like,
enough, Steve?
it's kind of like asking, it's
Stephen.
kind of like if you've got like a close friend, but then you've got other friends. Like, well, why is that one friend not enough? Because in life, sometimes variety is fun. Marriage to
doesn't
me
have the
isn't
same
just
boundaries
about
as a
my
friend.
going in. A lot of aspects to my marriage that I share with my wife that's really unique to my wife that I don't share with other people. It's just not one of those things.
Oof, that's not good. That's not good. Anyway, you know how the story ends. Even if you've never heard of any of these people, they're getting divorced. Very sad. Not going to make fun of him. A lot of conservatives seem to be making fun of this guy because his wife is leaving him. I think it's very sad, and I hope they patch it up and just get back together and stop sleeping with other people. Hope that's good. I'm entirely opposed to divorce, and so it would be good if they just did that. I don't know the story. She left him for some guy or whatever. Marriage is ordered toward producing children. It's not true of friendships. Maybe some friendships, but it shouldn't be. That's something else that would distinguish it. It's for forming the basic political unit of society, which is the family, just distinct from other webs and types of networks. Just different. That's always been true.
So this actually reminds me of why I'm kind of against marriage personally. Like, I'm not opposed to getting married, but when you see marriage for what it has always been and what he's saying here, it's kind of hard to like be pro-marriage as much, because he's saying it's part of the political unit for producing children, the family. So they see it as just like this institution, which basically has nothing to do with whether you love each other or not. So if you see someone in an open marriage, you're thinking, well, you know, if they're in an open marriage, they're probably not going to have children, maybe not, and they're not going to create this like family unit for politics, maybe skew more conservative. It's just all about like what they see as promiscuity, and it's having like your cake and eat it too. You're having a political union with someone, but also you get to sleep around like you're single. And again, like for me, marriage has always been a couple things: political union, that's what it's been historically, economic union to bring businesses together, or some sort of fash religious thing, where you're marrying for religious reasons because you believe in this bizarre stuff about giving yourself to another person, and God would only want you to sleep with someone if you're married and shit like that. And for me, like, none of them are good reasons. None of them are good, compelling reasons to get married. So that's why, and the only reason I see personally that I see a massive benefit to get married is the legal side if you have children, pretty much. Because otherwise, personally, I'm seeing a lot of my friends getting married recently, and it's hard to feel happy for them because I'm just like, I just don't get it. Like these days, I don't get the excitement around it. Apart from if you want to publicly declare your love, maybe I get that. But also, I'm not really like that. So for me, it's hard to be like, oh, I'm so happy for you, best day of your life, because maybe it's because I'm in a long-term relationship myself, where it's like I don't need a legally binding thing to stay in it, and I don't have children or anything. But yeah, just the way they view marriage seems like to be totally divorced from actually loving your partner. Because if you're waging a war on no-fault divorce and talking about open marriage in this way, it's pretty clear the only thing you think marriage is good for, in my opinion, is keeping women trapped as baby machines. Because that's the vibes I get from both these people. And with Matt Walsh, it seems like he's pretty much said as much as well. And then you start talking about like bloodlines, having children and not having children is disrespectful to your ancestors. Yeah, it's just, for me, conservatives' outlook on marriage is just so bizarre. And although it seems silly in a lot of ways, like even using this Destiny stuff as well, it is quite dangerous because there have been states which have politicians actually trying to make no-fault divorce illegal again, which of course is just terrible news. And although you can say, well, it would be illegal for both men and women, if you do have this very conservative patriarchal view, a lot of men who get into marriages don't really want a divorce, because if you view women in a certain way, if you view them as both baby machine but also maid and servant, then you probably don't want a divorce as much as the woman who might be in that relationship as well.